Welcome back guys to Voicey here and another r/entitled parents. Don't forget Voicey veterans to like, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called My Husband is in the Army, so your house is mine now. So where I live there's a small army base and around it is a housing estate where the families live. Part of this estate was sold to a couple of housing associations and I live in one of those. The army families move around a lot, so people in those houses generally move every 2 years or so. Some a little more frequently, others less so. There's a row of 4 terrace houses directly across from me, and one of them was empty, ready for new tenants. Here's where we begin. I took my daughter to nursery, and then went shopping for some new clothes. This was at 9 AM. I get back around 11:30 AM and see a large moving truck in the street. To avoid them, I go to the other side of my property. I suffer from chronic anxiety and tend to avoid most people. I go on the front door and take the new clothes upstairs to sort. Whilst I'm there, I hear noises from my back garden and door. Looking out the window, I see a man with a large toolbox trying to open my back door. A woman behind him looking furious, and the guys from the moving company standing around with boxes looking bored. I run down the stairs and open the door, meaning the guy, who I guessed was a locksmith, practically fell through the door into my kitchen. He was surprised of course, and after looking around he was confused, because clearly someone already lived here. The woman then sighs dramatically and thanks me for finally turning up because they've been there since 8 AM trying to get in. She just wants to get her stuff in so she and her kids can sleep. She waves the moving guys forward and then goes to get her kids out of the car. I'm busy trying to stop the moving guys from coming in with boxes, and her 2 kids, about 3 and 6, come charging into my garden. I've got a slide, swing, small trampoline and Wendy house there for my daughter to play with. I yell at them all to get out of my garden and stay away from my house. One of the movers looks in the window to my living room, sees all of my furniture in there, and waves his team back to the truck. His team leader pulls out some paperwork and begins going over it. The woman starts yelling at me, telling me I was a liar and a thief among other things. I've lived in this house for 4 years and tell her such, but she's having none of it. She gets right up in my face screaming at me, and I'm having trouble not bursting into tears and running away or decking her. The locksmith tries to calm her down and she starts having a go at him next. I call up the local police station office. There's one in the housing estate, but it generally only caters to the army people and such. I figured calling them to deal with her was the best solution. They arrive after a few minutes and take the woman aside. Her kids are still playing on my daughter's things, so I tell them to get off and go to their mother because those toys don't belong to them. They go reluctantly, and when their mother notices, she begins yelling again. Apparently those toys aren't mine, and they were put there by the army for her kids because her husband is such a wonderful soldier, that this is her house and I'm just some squatter trying to steal it from her. This is when the movers come over and tell her this is the wrong address. She's moving into number 4 and this is number 14. She goes very silent, grabs her kids and leaves the garden. I call out to ask her if she's going to pay for the damages done to my garden. Grass torn up by her kids and the movers. My door, from what looks like footprints trying to kick it in, and the scratches from the locksmith. My bushes by the gate. Movers and her yanking at them whilst waiting for the locksmith. She tells me no because she's done nothing wrong, which is when I inform her that I have cameras installed that would have seen the whole thing. I ask the officers if they would like to view the footage, and one of them watches the whole incident take place. Once I bring out my laptop, which both cameras are linked to, and he says he doesn't have anything to collect the footage just now, but he'll come back later to get it. He also tells me that he will have to report the woman's behavior to the base, as a family's bad behavior can have repercussions for their soldiers too. It's now 5 PM. The officer was here collecting copies of the footage in case it was needed, and might be shown to certain army officials as an example of her behavior. Husband turned up around an hour ago and there was a huge argument across the street. Everyone could hear it, but not exactly what was being said. Either way, this family hasn't exactly had a good start to their time here. I can only hope they'll move away soon so I won't have to deal with that woman again. If you're going to move into a new home, please make sure you have the right address. You think the clue would be, the key doesn't seem to work, there's furniture inside the house, oh and there's somebody already living there. Why would your instinct be, yes, it's a squatter trying to steal the house from me? Thank goodness the movers and locksmith were somewhat reasonable and didn't just do whatever the lady said. This story was called Entitled Stepmother Gets Mad at Something I Wrote in My Diary Years Beforehand. My stepmother isn't the greatest person. She's verbally abusive and has been married to my father for the past 14 years. She's caused me to deal with a lot of anxiety, and I had a little PTSD from this history that her and I share. She's done a lot of crappy things, but my father hasn't divorced her due to my mother ruining his mindset when she abandoned us 17 years ago. And there's a lot of money and inheritance that would be involved in the event of a divorce. Now that the history has been shared, here's the actual story. Back when I was about 8, my grandmother bought me a diary. She had been obsessed with the littlest pet shop toys, so it was themed around them with a pink fuzzy exterior with a monkey stitched into it. When my stepmother got upset with me or she thought I was hiding something, she'd absolutely tear my room apart. She'd find things and try to read whatever she got her hands on, or she'd find new things to take when I got grounded for the stupidest of things. What I can only assume is she found my diary one of these times, because the events that unfolded next is the only logical reason I can come up with for why she found out what was wrote in it. At the time, I kept my diary underneath my bed in the rungs that held up my mattress. I came back from my mum's for the weekend. My life there was not much better than home, and my room was in an unusual distressed state. There were things on the floor and pulled out of drawers, but I checked under my bed and found my diary was still where it belonged, though not exactly where I left it. Luckily, I kept the keys to the lock under my bedside table, somewhere she probably wouldn't think to look. A few weeks later, my stepsister came to visit. She's 11 years my elder, and at the time this event happened, I was 10, and didn't use the diary that often. There were actually never many entries that I put into it, as it was rather sporadic when I wanted to write into it. While my stepsister was in town, she asked if I had a diary and I told her I did. She asked me if she could read it, and though I didn't know her well, because she was never around and lived across the country at the time, I agreed because I trusted her to some degree. The next day, my stepmother confronted me about one of the entries, and I knew that she had gotten her hands on it as well because of what she fussed at me about. One day, I had taken my diary over to my grandmother's with me, not long after I got it, because I was writing in it all the time at 8 years old. My grandmother lived across the street, and one day my stepbrother was over there as well, and he was quite a nuisance because he's as entitled as my stepmother, even at the age of 6. He was pretty bratty and it was irritating. I had wrote in my diary that I wanted him to go home. Now, to note, I dated my diary entries. When I wrote this entry, it had been 2 years beforehand, so when my stepmother confronted me, it was kinda stupid at this point. She tore into me saying, "What do you mean you want him to go home? This is his home. Do you want him to be here? Do you hate us this much? You should be ashamed." Summarized from what I remember because it's been forever. She wouldn't let me tell her that I'd written the entry 2 years beforehand, and she just kept running me over and over and over, and I just kind of shut down. She shook the diary in my face the whole time, and I just stared at it upset because I couldn't get a word in, and she was blaming me for not caring about either of them. I ended up grounded for what I wrote. I used the diary to let out my feelings though. Many of them were angry, childish rants about people who were mean to me at school. I never mentioned her or my stepbrother despite what she did to me besides that one entry. When she gave me the diary back, I put it under my bedside table and never wrote anything else in it. I was too scared that she'd find out and get upset with me again. It stayed there under that spot until I moved my stuff out of the house 2 years ago. I can't remember if it's still in a box or if I threw it in the trash. More than likely the latter. I never kept a private diary again. Instead, I ended up writing about my life through blogging sites around the age of 13. And boy was I able to talk about her then to my heart's content. Somebody might write something in a diary that expresses something that you don't like, but everybody has the right to their feelings, and to express them privately if they wish. If you're to read somebody's private diary, you're breaking that person's trust, which is far worse than anything that could be written, no matter how hateful, inside of a diary. Do you keep a diary or write a blog online? Let me know in the comments below. This story was called Racist EM Cuts in Line at Indoor Waterpark. In the cast is me, EM, co-worker, EK about 8 or 9, nice dad and cop. It was a hot day and people obviously wanted to cool down in the water park. The water park has a special deal where if someone wants to come after a certain time, it is cheaper. Many people take advantage of it. It is approaching that time of day. I am tired of working, but the deal signals the day is nearly done. I brace myself for the upcoming rush. I looked at the line ahead. The first group was an African American family of 4 with 2 kids, about 7 and 5. EM is a few groups behind with her son, EK, Already, EK's behavior was out of control. He had a water gun filled with water and was just squirting it at random people passing by, including my coworker who just returned from a quick break. CW didn't mind. Working at a water park, you can't be afraid to get wet. CW is also African American, relevant later. The cop was also already nearby. They came by often to make sure there is no trouble when it is super busy. The time comes and we begin to process the tickets for the cheaper deal. Nice Dad is going through his bag looking for his wallet. He lets the people behind him go ahead, and me and CW process the people. ND finally finds his wallet and waits for the next open register. I am the next one open. I wait for ND to come over. ND got his kids and pointed in my direction. Instead, EK and EM run to my register. EM is the traditional Karen haircut and all. Excuse me, the other family was in line first. Please wait for the next open register. He let others ahead of him, so here I am. He was still about to make his way over. You can wait for CW. We do not allow line cutting. EM is getting irritated at me by this point. ND finally approaches. My family and I were here first. Please listen to the cashier. EM is triggered. EK is getting annoyed by the situation. I wanna go in, Mommy. Don't worry, we'll get in. These, bad word, will wait for us. We have a no line cutting policy. ND did not consent to you getting in front. Please go back to the line and wait your turn. EM losing her temper and turning red. I can help you here, ma'am. No, really bad word, will be helping me. I deserve to go first, right, EK? Yeah. You cut the line. We've been waiting longer. Listen to OP. EM and ND enter a screaming match. Everyone was watching them, and the cop that was nearby was alerted. He breaks them up and asks for their sides of the story. It became he said, she said. EM forgot one thing: the number of witnesses who saw it all. I want to speak with the manager. I am the assistant manager on staff today. I saw ND here first and you cut in line. Either go to the back of the line or leave. She cut in line. We also have cameras. Now what will it be, EM? EM is embarrassed but isn't going to give up. She whispers something to EK. EK lets out a smile, but I think nothing more of it. We will be going then. She slowly walks to the door. I process ND and his family. I gave them coupons for the trouble. They were about to walk into the park. EM comes running up and squirts me with his water gun. My shirt is soaked. The cop then grabs him and takes him outside. I sighed and continued processing the customers. EM was banned from the premises, and I wrote up a report in case she tries to come back. But she didn't come back again. If you're waiting in line and you let someone in front of you, it's not like it resets you to the back of the line or anything. You're still technically at the front of the line. To get to that position, you had to wait through the line too. It seems like the entitled mom just didn't want to be served by the other person, for the reason that she made so evident in the story. This story was called, Boyfriend's Mum Expects Him to Act Like He Never Moved Out. So my boyfriend has what is essentially an emotionally abusive mother. Because of her, he has become very cold to the world at times, and he couldn't wait to move out, which he did at 18. And he later got a house at 20. Now his parents are supportive, but she is extremely overbearing. When he and I started dating when he was 17, she told him that she thought it was time that they get rid of me. She snoops through his things, shows up unexpectedly, and if he ignores her, she threatens to call the police. Once he and I were watching movies and his phone kept going off, which of course we ignored. When we were done, he checked his phone and his mum had called 26 times, texted him that she was outside his house, and that if he didn't respond she would call the police and report him as missing. But she veils it all by buying him things, and bringing groceries every once in a while. And how does she know what he needs? She snoops. She even pays for someone to clean the house every other week, which means the cleaner has to have a key. And the cleaner isn't from a service, it's her friend, who gives her the key and she gets a copy. She acts like he still lives at home and that his house is hers. When he moved in, she didn't let him enjoy things like setting his house up, making decisions, putting his flair to it. She went out and bought a paint that she thought looked good and kept telling him what to do with his furniture. The worst part is, while he hates her and claims he wants her out of his life, he doesn't do anything. I'm honestly scared of what will happen if we got engaged. She will probably get worse and darn well plan the wedding. People like that can be manipulative, especially when they use money, because they kind of mess with the incentives of disassociating with them. If they're giving you things in your life that are good, whether it's small like something like groceries, or perhaps something bigger like a car, well then you feel obligated to have them closer to you in your life than really they should be. and that's how they get away with all their manipulation. The girlfriend can see it because she's one step removed, but for the boyfriend, it's probably a lot harder to make that distinction. Post your stories, memes, and fan art at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.